Anita here with me to start recording the dialogue. My name is Anita Marullo, and I am a project coordinator at ICAS, European Citizen Action Service. ICAS is part of the Bolster consortium together with other 11 European partner organizations and under the leadership of the Tilburg University. For those of you who are not yet familiar with the Bolster project, Bolster stands for Bridging Organizations and Marginalized Communities for Local Sustainability Transitions in Europe. And this is a project co-funded by the Horizon Europe program of the European Union. The project aims to understand how marginalized communities and vulnerable actors are affected by European Green Deal policies, and whether involving them in the decision-making processes can increase the acceptance of transition plans. Under the coordination of ICAS, the consortium is organizing a series of 10 online policy dialogues focusing on the regions that are the target regions of the projects. These are regions that are going through just transition processes. But through these dialogues, we would like also to stimulate some cross-regional learning and comparison with other regions in Europe that have experienced green transitions. So today, our dialogue will focus mainly on the region of Silesia in Poland. And specifically on the impact of the green transition on local economic actors and their role in the transition process. And we will also discuss cases and perspectives from Romanian and Estonian regions. During the event, we will also ask our attendees to contribute to the conversation by responding to a few Slido questions. And we would like now to start indeed with some preliminary, let's say, icebreaker Slido questions. So next slide, please. You can connect to slido.com. You can use the credentials that are available here in the slide. I can perhaps also add them to our chat, so you can also see them there. And yeah, I'll invite you to respond to the first question, which is where are you joining us from today? From which city or region you are connecting? You can give a couple of minutes. All right, so we see quite a diverse participation. We have a few representatives from Poland, but also like Brussels and many other cities and regions today with us. I will then go perhaps to the second question, and we would like to know how familiar you are with the topic of the just transition in the EU. So you can now respond to the multiple choice question. Okay, so now that I think, yeah, we have most of the people have some basic knowledge, we see, and quite a few have a solid background, and only a small percentage are not familiar with the topic. So we hope that the conversation will also enhance awareness and knowledge about the topics of today. So I think that now that we have a bit of an overview of our public composition, we can now introduce our first presenter. He's Professor Adam Drobniak, Dean of the Faculty of Spatial Management and Regional Transition at the University of Economics in Katowice. And Adam is also member of the Council for the Just Transformation of the Silesian Voivodeship. And in the past, he was also head of the Just Transition Expert Group at the Ministry of Climate and Environment in Poland, as well as director of the Institute of Ecology of Industrial Areas in Katowice. So today we'll present us his insights on the role of local economic actors in the context of the green transition in Polish core regions and especially in Silesia. So please, Adam, the floor is now yours. I will unmute you.
Okay. So thank you, Anita, for the invitation. Good morning to everyone. So during my presentation, I would like to show only a few contexts of just transition in Poland that shed light on the challenges, participation issues, type of actors, and conflict among them. My findings results from direct works on National Just Transition Plan, which I was responsible in 2021, and also from works on a territorial just transition plan for the Silesia and other regions. Today, I like to focus only on four main issues of just transition planning in Polish core regions. First concerns the game between territorial and sectoral intervention within the Just Transition Fund. Second refers to the governance defects during the Just Transition programming at the central and regional level. Third is linked with the participation issues in this process. And the last one refers to actors taking part in the process and the conflict among them. Another slide, please. So the territorial context first. Just Transition Fund, as we know, it is territorially oriented. That means that the Just Transition plans for the coal regions must be prepared to take up the funds. Sorry, in Poland we have 13 coal regions, very different in terms of population, economic size, dominance of traditional sectors, and so on. And these regions are responsible for about 20% of Poland's GDP, 20% of workplaces, 20% of inhabitants, and unfortunately for 40% of CO2 emission. So they have quite significant socioeconomic scale, which also shows the scale of challenges of just transition and energy transition that we face in Poland. The next slide, please. And this sectoral context, which is very important in our consideration, because just transitions is directly connected with energy transitions. It means that coal regions may apply for a Just Transition Fund under the one condition: they show a plan of the decarbonization up to 2030. And here we have a serious problem in Poland because traditional sectors like mining and conventional energy industry belongs to the state. Thus, the coal and energy sectors are managed from the central level. They are independent from the regional one, and also independent to some extent even from the market economy forces. In short, regions in planning just transition need to reach a consensus with the government on the pace of decarbonization. Even if the regions receive just transition fund support, a real decarbonization process is outside of their control. This creates the danger of different dynamics of transition in territorial and sectoral dimensions because of a lack or need of coordination. The next slide, please. And now the territorial and sectoral contexts are clearly reflected by the governance context. At the beginning of 2020, the government wanted to manage just transition only by itself. Hence, the central model of just transition and one national just transition plan was created. Fortunately, the works on a national plan were carried out by incompetent people. The value of national plan was oversized by 20 times. The EU Commission was shocked, and the conflict between the government and the regions intensified. In 2021, the repair of the national plan began, and the hybrid model was implemented. The hybrid model means that we divide the money from the Just Transition Fund and other funds into two envelopes. Part of them were connected with the central level, and part of them went to the regions. From that moment, the National Just Transition Plan focused on traditional sectors with intervention in reskilling, upskilling, and diversification of activities. And thus, the national plan started to be complementary to the territorial Just Transition Plan. But at the end of 2021, the Ministry of Climate, who strongly supported this solution, resigned, and the works on national plan ended. And finally, the national plan was abandoned. Thus, in 2022, the regional model finally wins, but this is a partly Pyrrhic victory because regions have no influence on the energy transition, traditional sectors. In that way, traditional sectors have been excluded from the just transition, so the sector started to block the energy transition. For example, the energy sector does not expand power grids. And without these expansions, it is not possible to develop photovoltaic systems on a greater scale, for example. And moreover, there are no employment reduction in the traditional sectors, so the Just Transition Fund support for upskilling and reskilling seems to be useless for now. And next slide, please. Participation context. In 2020, where the central model dominated, national plan was not consulted with stakeholders. In 2021, within a hybrid model, huge efforts were made to catch up at time, and extensive consultation of national plan were launched with many actors. So their scope was quite wide. I personally conducted over 200 meetings with 2,500 of people during 10 months of 2021. Of course, it was impossible to reach everyone in such a short time, and the national plan and also territorial plans were not consulted with groups like children and youth, for example, elderly people, women from mining families, people with low incomes, or people with disabilities. Although some records for these groups were included in the territorial plans and national plans, but it was linked with the tough negotiations with the EU Commission, because the Commission did not allow us to use the Just Transition Fund, for example, for energy poverty reduction. Next slide, please. Actors. Just transition and energy transition involve many stakeholders from different levels. Please mind that the process of transition concerns about 20% of Poles. This is over 7 million of people. The actors have different strategic stakes. Some of them want to benefit from the transition process, but some want to delay it as far as possible. So we have a EU Commission that plays for the fast and rational implementation of transition. We have a central government, which is not clear. Some ministries are trying to delay the process, others are trying to speed it up. We also have a coal-intensive sector along with the trade unions and workers, which is not interested in changes at all. And opposite, we have SMEs from green sectors and green NGOs, which are followers and strong supporters of just transition and energy transition. We also have regional authorities, which generally place for just transition and energy transition, but with different speed. And we have local communities which have different attitudes towards the energy transition and just transition. Part of them support it, but not. The next slide, please. And the map of actors is very complex and may change depending on many factors, including time and policy options. But the main line of the conflict is between the traditional sector and its workers versus green SMEs, green NGO, and regional authorities. Dynamics between the supporters, I mean this green side of the conflict, and the opponents, the traditional sectors, are very variable and sometimes sharp. In years 2020, 2021, green side seemed to be winning, but after 2022, because of the Ukrainian war, energy crisis, need for the energy security, the traditional sectors came up on top. And the next slide. What is the nature of the conflict? Here we have statements of actors collected during our works on national plan and territorial plans. And the green side of the conflict, this is a bottom left box. So the green side of the conflict demands for rapid implementation of energy transition, also demands for significant change of the model of energy market into more diversified, and also demands for the needs for legislative changes, which allow for dynamic development of green industries, like the regulation of energy market, for example, allowing more dense development of windmills, implementation of regulation in the waste recovery, transfer of post-industrial sites for free to self-governments or to green firms. On the other side, the traditional sector, which is presented by the bottom right box, perceive the green change in quite a different way. They argue for slowing down the entire process of green change and postponing it. They also argue for keeping the control over and maintain the central model of energy production. And also for diversification of coal industries, but mainly by polishing existing coal technologies. So sparks fly between these two groups of actors. And the last slide, please. So I like you to see there are quite different visions or visions of energy transition and just transition of all regions in Poland between diverse stakeholders. And I hope you capture the complexity of the relationships between these actors. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam, for this very comprehensive presentation. Yeah, indeed, I mean, it's very interesting to see like that there are all these layers of complexity, and yeah, and like the relationships among many actors that are involved in the transition process, also at regional level, and I guess yeah, that makes the things quite complex and layered. So, well, we have now some time for Q&A. Before giving the floor to our public, I would like to ask you if you can elaborate a bit more regarding what role could be played by emerging economic actors such as SMEs, startups, incubator in promoting just transition at the regional level in Silesia and in all regions in transition. Yeah, if do you have, for instance, any examples that you want to share on that?
Right. I must highlight that fast-growing sectors in Poland are not necessarily connected with the green transition, but mainly they linked with the IT sectors, computer programming, real estate, automation, and so on. But there is one sector of green economy connected with renewable energy sources, mainly with photovoltaic system panels, which has developed fast in last years. The volume of energy production capacity from that source has increased for about 30%. It makes the SMEs in renewable energy sources directly associated with the green transition, this green revolution. What could be the role of these kind of SMEs? So first, the sector plays a role of visible carrier of green transition. There is a direct role of promoting the green change. Second, the sector creates relatively large number of good paid workplaces due to the incentives for households to install the PV panels, etc. So there is a role of providing workplaces in the new market, labor market. And the third, despite the sector is mainly connected with installation of PV panels, there are also some R&D activities in this sector. The example is the firm quite big. I mean, up to 50 workers, something like that. The name of the firm is Unimod. It is located in one of the core regions in the Silesia. The firm specialized in R&D, especially in the new ways of delivering renewable energy sources like horizontal windmills, new materials for PV panels, or software for energy clusters. And also the Unimod provides a showroom for renewable energy sources as well as expertise, consulting services and trainings for youth. Yeah, that's so.
All right, thank you very much, Adam, for these insights. It's good to hear these examples and have a bit more awareness of what is happening at local level. Yeah, I will now like to give the floor to our attendees. If you want to ask any questions, you can share it, raise your virtual hand that's seen on the bottom right of your screen normally. You can write them in the chat if you prefer as well. Okay, I think Elisa, you can talk.
Okay. I'm filling the void. I wanted to know, because Romania is gonna face this next year. I wanted to know what your take is on how the elections in Poland might have influenced this process.
Right. This is a very difficult question because we had to wait until 13th of November to answer this. So I think if the opposition will form the government, the energy transition will speed up, and the energy transition will be better coordinated with the territorial transition, which we plan within the Just Transition Fund. But if not, so the contemporary scenario will last. Yeah, that's my short answer to this question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for this answer. I see we have another question in the chat from Artur Ochowski. Is why do we actually have some groups, the voices of whom we who do we actually have? Some groups, the voices of whom were heard, like youth or elderly people. So yeah, my understanding of the question, perhaps if Artur want to take the floor to elaborate more, is like the inclusion about groups that are marginalized in this process. So yeah, I mean, if you want to comment on that, Adam, it's...
But could you explain a little bit more what you'd like to ask me?
I'm not sure because I'm reading on the chat. The question
Yeah.
is, why do we actually have some groups, the voice of whom were heard, like youth or elderly people? So I guess I don't know.
We have these voices. I really don't understand the question.
I think the question was, why were some groups heard and others not? Because you mentioned that youth and women's groups were not involved in the process.
I think the problem was that, as I try to show you, that we have a big conflict between the central government and the regional governments or authorities, and we focus mainly on this conflict and consultation of the just transition and energy transition between the main stakeholders in this process, especially to attract the money on the regional level. And that was also not enough time to consult the territorial just transition plan or a national just transition plan with other groups, social groups, which are also not well organized. Yeah, probably that was the reason, lack of time and low level of organization of this kind of groups, like elderly people or women from mining families, etc. So, or also youth. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I see another question on the chat from Kristina Nikolova. The question is, what are the current developments in the regional just transition plans implementation, and what is the level of local participation in just transition at the moment?
So I not deal with the implementation exactly, but as far as I know, the contests for the Just Transition Fund, many dimensions, etc. For example, also for SMEs, and the Just Transition Fund started to be implemented in this year. And if there are some participation issues, yes, I say yes. but also we consult the implementation of the Just Transition, territorial Just Transition program with some representatives of main stakeholders. And another one, very important thing is that the Marshall Office prepares some projects which will be addressed to these say minorities or groups which were not consulted in the 2021 or 2022. Yeah, to hear their voice, etc. Yeah.
Many thanks again for the reply. Is there anyone else who wants to ask or comment? Well, I see already another question. Perhaps, yeah, we can take this last one. What is the question?
The role. What is the role of the educational
Okay.
programs? Yeah. I see, and I also tried to show you that that could be a big challenge, especially in the Silesia region. With this reskilling and upskilling schemes financed from the Just Transition Fund, because, as I said, the energy transition in Poland, especially in the coal mining sector, just stopped. So there is no any reduction of employment in these mining industries. So we really don't know what will happen in a few years and if the money will be finally spent on this reskilling and upskilling. Probably this we will use this money for the coal-related industries, people who works in the coal-related industries. It is more possible to spend the money on that group of workers.
Thank you very much, Adam, for all these very important insights. I think now we can then move on to our second presentation of the day. So we have here with us Eliza Bernea, who is Just Transition Campaign Coordinator at Bankwatch Romania, and in the past also collaborated with the World Bank and the Friedrich Hebel Foundation, carrying out various analyses and studies on climate action and sustainability, and specifically focus on promotion of public participation and creation of communities in this context. Eliza will now outline us a bit the role of SMEs in the landscape of the Romanian Just Transition process. So yeah, the floor is now yours, Eliza. I think you are already unmuted, so you can.
Thank you, Anita, for the invitation. Good morning, everyone. We're going to talk a bit about the Romanian context now, and with a specific focus on how local economic actors and more specifically SMEs are involved in the Just Transition process. Next slide, please. So in order to give you a general overview of the situation in Romania, we have 6 regions that are direct beneficiaries of the Just Transition Fund in Romania, and that's a total allocation of over 2.5 billion euros. In these 6 regions, there are 4 industries, which one that I forgot to put here, now I realize. It's coal, steel production, chemical fertilizers, and oil. And these out of the 2.5 billion allocated, the bulk of the financing, over 50% of the Just Transition Fund allocation for Romania goes to SMEs development and entrepreneurship. We're still in a governance structure, hybrid governance structure between central and regional governments, but it is worth mentioning that it's the first time for operational programs of European funds when the governance has also been given to regional development agencies. It's usually centralized. So at this stage, the Ministry of European Funds has launched the first call for proposals. This one for SMEs is the first one. It launched it last week or 2 weeks ago, and now beneficiaries have 2 months of preparation and can start submitting their projects in December this year. Out of the modeling that was done for the preparation of the TJTPs, it turned out that investments in SMEs and research and development activities are actually expected to yield the largest positive impact in terms of employment. This all comes on a on a background of SME landscape in Romania that is characterized by high prevalence, and by this I mean that some analysis puts the number of the share of SMEs in the total number of enterprise at around 99% in Romania, employing over 65% of the employees and contributing to with 55% of the country's added value. And in the 6 regions that I'm mentioning, SMEs are indeed the large chunk of enterprises, together with SOEs, state-owned enterprises, which are the affected industries, and some large companies. Next slide, please. So out of these numbers, we can clearly see that SMEs are a key actor in economic diversification in the just transition process, because with the green transition, we'll have a myriad of new business opportunities, whether we're talking about new markets, new processes, or products. And the SMEs that will manage to adapt to the new regulatory framework and take advantage of the incoming financing streams in order to diversify and green production and services will gain competitive advantages, which will clearly put them ahead of the curve. These can also mean absorption of workforce, including among vulnerable groups, tackling intra-regional disparities, which in Romania are very high, promotion of green skills, and mainstreaming of climate action. And these are a few measures that have been taken through the financing guidelines in Romania for SMEs in order to support these outcomes. And more specifically, there are opportunities for financing both productive investments and reskilling and upskilling programs, so integrated measures. And here we already have one such example of SME in one of the counties, in Gorj County, which is the most affected, and it's Darkom Energy, who provides PVs, including end-of-life collection and recycling, and has also a training center for workers to learn how to install the technology and maintain it. We have the stimulation of use of secondary raw materials and green energy production. And here we have, for example, already another SME who is collecting, recycling, and reselling used construction material from its local environment. And we have incentives for employing persons belonging to vulnerable groups, and we're opening working points, working offices in more rural areas. Next slide, please. There are several challenges that SMEs face in obtaining these results and in transitioning in a just and green manner. And I selected just a few that I'm going to mention together with a context and together with a couple of solutions that we proposed in the past. One of them would be extremely low public awareness regarding the green just transition, its risk, its opportunities, even among key groups like youth or SMEs. And here we had a previous analysis in Galați County based on steel production with over 60 interlocutors. We had several focus groups with several groups of stakeholders, including SMEs and youth. And we found a very low awareness of the Just Transition Fund and a very low intention to transform activity, which obviously stems from the lack of information on the green transition. For example, we had a focus group of 12 students at the local university, out of which one was aware of the green transition, its implications and its risk on local transformations. So this shows that the awareness of local level of people who should be directly involved in the process is continuously lacking. And as solutions, we proposed new media campaigns with constant digestible messaging that should be done by different stakeholders in order to reach diverse group targets. We propose workshops or community engagement activities for mainstreaming green just transition information and mainstreaming of transition-related information through education and training curriculum. Next slide, please. Another challenge, and maybe the thorniest, is the low labor market participation and skills gap, especially among women, and paradoxically, despite a large labor deficit that we see in Romania. So we have the lowest rate of labor market participation in the EU, which in 2022 was set around 62% versus 75% at EU level. And in JTF regions, we see a very problematic, very low rate of labor market participation of women, which is around 10 percentage points lower than the men's, and setting it at 52% of women part of the labor market. And comparatively, in Bucharest region, for example, it's at over 86%. In Gorj County, which again is the most affected region, for example, it's a good example for the issue also of informal work, informal workers. In Gorj County, we have a workforce of around 200,000 people, out of which a bit over 115,000 are employed, and 11,000 are registered at the public employment agency as unemployed. So that leaves us with a gap of around 70,000 people who are not registered and unemployed, but who are not part of the active market force. And of course, you can assume that some of these 70,000 have migrated and work abroad and have never declared it, but it still leaves you with a large gap of people who are not part of the formal work market. And on top of this, we have a lack of green skills regulatory framework to facilitate the development of curriculums, and we have dated educational and training curriculums. And a bit of a few solutions that we proposed for this is measures to incentivize SMEs who are implementing measures to tackle informality, like a top-up to minimum wage, for example. Eligibility of cadastre expenses, because what we notice is that in a lot of cases, lack of formal and up-to-date propriety rights impedes people from turning their property, for example, into a business point. Decentralization of occupational mediation services in order to tackle these intra-regional disparities, an observatory for the future job market to carry out analysis and forecasts, and progressive taxation, elimination of over-taxation for part-time employment in order to support women in the labor market. Next slide, please. And the final one that I chose to talk about today is low innovation capacity and low digitalization. So we have the lowest rate of SME digitalization in Romania, and the lowest rate of digital skills among population in the EU. And what we notice, I'm also part of the monitoring committee of the implementation of the Just Transition Fund at the level of Ministry of European Funds. And what we notice in this whole process of preparing the TJTPs, preparing the project pipeline, is that diversification intentions are geared towards more traditional activities. And rather than towards more risk-prone or more higher learning curve activities that could yield higher added value or create better quality jobs. And here as well, the problem of skills deficit and lack of supporting infrastructure for innovation and digitalization. And some solutions we proposed are the development of collaborative ecosystems and incubators to facilitate knowledge transfer. This could mean between academia and private sector or within private sector. Financial incentives for digitalization, digital skills training, including the digital component in reskilling programs, and public procurement to increase demand of innovative goods and services. I think this is the last one. It is. Thank you. And so if there are any questions, happy to answer them.
Many thanks, Eliza, for this very comprehensive analysis. I think we see indeed also like here that digitalization, and it's a bit of a component that's very important for green transition, and generally speaking, innovation and green SMEs may find opportunities to grow, though the complexity of the landscape it makes it of course not straightforward. I would have a question before giving the floor to our public for Q&A. So we may guess that besides like of course green SMEs and innovation business, there may have been small and micro businesses also impacted by the transformation as being in the ecosystem of key traditional industries that are undergoing the transition, so shrinking or closing down. My question is like the just transition approach, like leaving no one behind, applicable also to them, and in which way?
Absolutely. So if we're talking about second and third tier companies that are directly connected to the affected industries, they are definitely concerned as well in this process. It's also one of the reasons the bulk of the JTF financing in Romania goes to SMEs and diversification of activity. So though they are part of the supply chain of the declining industries, in a lot of cases in Romania, we see that the products and services that they provide to the industry are one part of their overall activity, which puts them in a better position to adapt and makes diversification of activity less cumbersome. This being said, they can still experience financial stress because of reduced demand. They can experience job displacements or supply chain disruptions. And I guess adapting to this transition will imply a reassessment of business models, maybe merging or being acquired by stronger companies, retraining of employees definitely to adapt to new services and products offered, collaborating with the transitioning industry to develop products and services that are appropriate for the new economy, or with academia for better R&D activities.
Many thanks, Eliza, for your answers. I see that there are already a couple of questions in the chat, so I will read. The first one is from Georgios Meleas. How SMEs can be empowered to reach digital and energy transition? I think, yeah, it's quite a broad question, but yeah, if you want to comment briefly.
Yeah, thank you, Yorgos, for this question. I think here the solution of creation of ecosystems and training is also central. So we need to make sure that SMEs are part of ecosystems that have access to information that facilitates knowledge transfer, that facilitates access to technologies, and we need to make sure that they have the digital skills necessary to take good advantage of the information and the technology provided, access to digital tools and software. We need to make sure that there's access to financing. We could think about, I don't know, special financing programs to help SMEs digitalize, and these whole structures of consultations and guidance, I think are still necessary to help root the vision of an alternative business model in the concepts of green and digital transition.
Thank you very much, Eliza, for the answer. I see we have another question again from Kristina Nikolova in the chat. She's considering the current developments in Romania, and from the point of view of the LJTP steering committee, are there any specific measures that could be undertaken to boost the participation of marginalized groups in the just transition process? And what is the role of SMEs?
Yes, there are a lot of measures that could be taken to better this. I was thinking about the question that one participant posed to Adam earlier on why other groups weren't involved, and I think it's the same situation in Romania. And as an anthropologist, I have to come out and say that it's probably what he was saying, that groups are not properly represented is one aspect, is that groups are also, some groups are also disempowered from taking part in these processes, because usually these are quite technocratic processes that are characterized by a very technical language, and this can intimidate and disencourage certain groups from participating. So I think what we actually need is the capacity and the human resource and the understanding to go in the field, to go at the grassroots level and do outreach activities, focus groups, citizens cafes, to make sure that are properly moderated so as different groups, like maybe informal workers or the elderly or the extremely disadvantaged, feel like there's a fora for them to speak as well. What we see as a problem in Romania is that these activities that are usually these consultation processes, but that are geared by public administration, which usually lack the capacity to go out and do these things, and which sometimes don't actually understand the value of these processes. So yeah, I think that outreach activities have to be always put in place, and the communication aspect of the whole just transition process is really crucial to ensure public consensus and public buy-in. You need digestible and constant narrative of the whole process.
Thank you very much. We are a bit running out of time, so I will take one last question that is from Adam in the chat, and if you can respond just very quickly. It's what is the attitude of the central governments towards the energy transition?
Adam is throwing my question back at me. Well, it depends. We have all of the elections that we can possibly have. We have them next year. So there are 4 elections in the same year. And because of it, we're already seeing some twisting of the narratives. Regional authorities and Ministry, for example, of European funds, who is directly pressured to implement the process and spend the money, is more constant. But when it comes to Ministry of Energy or local trade unions or local authorities, we see a lot of manipulation of narrative, because though this transition, maybe not justly, but this transition has been happening for the past 30 years, we still haven't put any alternatives in place. So you still have to assuage the fears of the people, and that is also politically attractive. So we'll see next year.
Thank you very much to you, Eliza, but also to Adam. Both our speakers have indeed highlighted a bit the complexity that happens and interplay between national, regional, and local level, which makes the transition a complex process, but yeah, I think there is a lot more to say about that, but we can now move on to our panel discussion. We will have again Adam and Eliza with us, and besides them, we have Anna Dudek, who is head of the Regional Transformation at the Marshal's Office of the Silesian Voivodeship and has a long-standing experience in cooperation with local governments on joint strategic actions and large impact projects. We have then Grzegorz Trefon. I hope I pronounce it well, otherwise please excuse me. Grzegorz is representing the Alliance of Trade Unions Kadria in Poland, which is mainly active in the area of coal mining and its value chain. And Grzegorz is specifically in charge of safeguarding the trade unions' involvement in policy making, and especially in just transition and Green Deal policies. We have then our climate and feminist activists, Agata Otrepska, representing the Silesian Climate Movement, a regional network of activists created to reduce the negative effects of climate change, who will present us a bit the activist and civil society perspectives. And last but not least, we have Ivan Sergeyev, who is Just Transition Process Coordinator at the Estonian Ministry of Finance. Well, without further ado, I would like to ask the panelists that have not spoken yet in the previous presentations to comment a bit on the presentations indeed that we have just heard. please just try to be a bit concise so we have time for our questions, but I would like to start with Anna first, if she's there. Let me see.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah.
Do you hear me? Yes, okay. So my name is Anna Dudak. I'm a head of Regions Transition Unit in the Department for Regional Development and Transition. I represent the regional self-government and the department responsible for developing the regional strategy, but also the territorial just transition plan of the Silesia region. So let me give you maybe a little overview of how the situation in our region looks like. Silesia region is the largest beneficiary of JTF fund and the largest co-region in European Union with 7 sub-regions subject to just transition. The transition affects directly or indirectly almost 5 million of residents of our region. We estimate that by the end of 2030, Silesia will lost 36,000 jobs in coal and coal mine related businesses. And by the end of 2049, the number will increase to 140,000 people. So I think that this is one of the greatest challenges of this kind in European Union. And this is why the regional self-government adopted in 2021 the regional strategy. We call it Green Silesia. So I think that the direction in which our region is developing was set. And then in line with this document, in 2022, we adopted the Territorial Just Transition Plan. It is a very complex document. It covers the area of economy, the area of environment, but also the society. And we are the beneficiary of the allocation of JTF of about 2.2 billion euros. So this is a big amount of money. But in spite of being responsible as a managing authority, because it's also worth mentioning that in Poland, regions are responsible for implementing JTF as a managing authorities, not just to JTF, but also other cohesion policy funds like ERDF and DSF+. But despite it, we are also responsible for coordinating the process at the regional level, managing knowledge, but also conducting research using its result in programming, animating cooperation, incubating large projects, but also developing tools to enhance the process of transition on a local level. So these are basically the tasks that the regional self-government is responsible for. And actually the one question was on the chat about it. So far, we are quite advanced in implementing JTF. We have more than 1,000 applications submitted for a total of almost 1.25 billion euro. So it's quite a lot. The value of submitted application is over 57% of the fund allocation. So a lot. In some cases, much higher value of allocation is exceeded. So in calls for applications like in renewable energy sources or investment in enterprises, the number of application exceeded the allocation 5 times, and in res energy even 10 times. So we hope that we will be able to co-finance these projects as soon as possible, because during this process of development, this transition plan, we organized a lot of meetings, we organized a lot of workshops, more than 40. More than 3,000 people took part in these meetings. But still, I think that after a lot of discussions, the inhabitants and other stakeholders are waiting for the results, and we hope that we will see the results soon. So thank you for now.
Thank you very much, Anya, for this this overview of what's going on at the regional level in Silesia. I will now want to hear from Grzegorz, giving him the floor.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Grzegorz Trefan from Katra. So I would like to present some of information about our activity as trade unions, because of course there is a lot of activities related to territorial just transition plan, well described by Anna Dudek, but we also have some of different sort of activities like trade unions. Because of the challenge for the workers of the decarbonization process and some of problem of company restructuring, economic, social, with both things, trade unions also try to negotiate some of agreement to be an active player at regional and national level. And as trade unions, we sign the social agreement for transition in hardcore mining sector and in Silesia voivodeship. And this social agreement signed 2 years ago offers something like a social shield for workers. It is really important activities because we try to make more trust for the change. And that's why we negotiate a lot of things for our workforce. And the social shield offer in social agreement something like a guarantee of employment and a system of social protection. So if there is no possibility of retirement or replacement to another mining plant, another company, the system of social protection plus no-fee training system is guaranteed in our social agreement signed with the employer organization and also with the Poland government. We have also some of guarantee of social mining benefit package, included mining leaves. This is a big support for workers with around 80% of remuneration of wages for the workers when they decide to, leave the sector. We have also the same system of benefits for people who leave the coal mine and working as mechanical coal processing workers. And we have one-time severance pay, big benefits for workers who decide, leave own professions. And there is also a big ban for the workers that they cannot return to coal mine companies and they can't work if they decide to leave the sector. And this, let's say, negotiation with benefits and social shield built something like the trust for transition. I know that some of Romanian colleagues describe very well the need of support of small or medium size enterprise, especially colleagues Elisa Bardea. But in my perspective, the situation of small or medium enterprise depends on general socio-economic situation in the region. So, of course, there is a big need to stimulate the support for SMEs because they take decisions very fast and they can make this greening of the economy faster than huge companies. But if we put this support for SMEs to background at local level, there will be a big also a problem for them to develop any activities. So it is necessary also to take care of the health of situation, local situation, and some of economic condition of employees, because they are they are the ones who purchase the most of goods and services coming from SMEs. So if there will be no good situation at local level, the SMEs has a big problem to develop these greening activities. So that's why we should take care for local people, but also support the development of SMEs. We need these two things, the both of these two activities. So as trade unions, we try to involve to support just transition. Union can help the preparing of trade union organization to be more active in transition process. We try to work for better social protection. We try to prepare the better education, training, and skill programs. And also, we support economic diversification and industrial strong policy. So let's say there will be no just transition without worker participation. So workers should promote industrial policies, promote technological innovation and development, some of R&D investment, promote investment also in green technologies, promote also economic diversification in the region. This is our roles as trade unions, but it is not an easy roles and works because of our membership based on fossil fuel sectors. So it's a huge challenge for us to do it. So we need also promote a social dialogue, and social dialogue must be an integral part of policy making process. Adequate, informed and ongoing consultation should take care with relevant stakeholders, included trade union organization. This is really important to have trade union on board. On many different levels, at company level, at regional level, at national level, but also at European level. And we try to make it. So this is our activities in Poland. So let's say I'm at your disposal now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Grzegorz, and yeah, indeed, we guess that's not an easy process for the transformation of this type of industries in relations to employees' conditions. I would like to hear though by Agata Otrepska, the Silesian Climate Movement.
Okay. Thank you. It's good to meet you all and to see you all today. I'm from the Silesian Climate Movement, so I'm representing, let's say, non-expert part of the society, civil society. And it was very interesting to listen to both of the presentations with the Romanian and Polish cases, because what I see, we've got lots in common, so the same challenges and so on. But I've got the feeling that in Poland, we are still on the higher level of implementation of just transitions. So we are still discussing in Poland whether the transition needs to happen. Is it true? And that's the reason why I thought your presentation, Elisa, was much more detailed. So I feel that in Romania, you are discussing how to do that, and we are still discussing whether to do it or not. So that was very interesting to listen to. And I think what we are doing as the Silesian Climate Movement, what we are trying to do is to raise the awareness of the necessity of decarbonization and energy transition and just transition processes. And we do it in a limited scale somehow with the limited resources. But what we do, we are trying to reach the people and tell them, well, that just transition is coming, the decarbonization is coming. This is the necessity. It can be done, and it can be done nicely, but we need to do something, and we are waiting for help and support. So I will elaborate on that more later, but that's what I wanted to highlight, that I see similarities and differences in both countries, and it inspires me to think how to get us faster on the way. I would like to see us on the Romanian way, actually. That's what I would like to see. And good luck, Lisa, for Romania for the 4 election processes next year, because what we experienced here this year with the parliamentary election was really, it was chaotic, and all the transition and climate subjects were frozen. So I really hope for you to get better in this process. So I'm not sure whether it was enough. Okay, thank you. And I hope it was enough of presenting the Silesia climate movement and us involved in the whole process. Just to finalize with who we are people who gathered together climate in any possible way. So we are a very broad group of people. So I'm representing very, very diverse group. Thank you.
Thank you, Agatha. And last, then we have Ivan, that will bring some perspectives from Estonia as well.
Yes. Hi. Thanks, Anita, for the introduction. Thanks for inviting. Great to be here. Super interesting to learn about the experiences. I mean, just what I just heard about the trade union involvement and this whole social agreement. I would like to learn more. I'll be in touch with you guys later. Yeah, so I come from Estonia. We're a tiny country, 1.3 million people altogether. So the numbers that you guys were talking about of like 5 million people being, influenced by the transition in just one region of Poland, that's like mind-blowing to me. So our numbers are much smaller. The whole Idaviru region is like 140,000 people. Out of that, in the oil shale sector, so our fossil fuel that we're trying to phase out is the oil shale. It's not the same as coal. You can both burn it, and then you can also sort of squeeze oil out of that rock, and then use it as a liquid fuel. So that's what we're dealing with. And in that sector, it's about 5,000 to 6,000 people altogether in the region. So it's, I mean, if you're talking about 5 million, then here it's 5,000. It's a massive scale difference. But anyway, so let's say even taking that into account, still the transition is quite, how do I say, quite heavy, quite difficult. It has been ongoing for years. I don't know how about the other regions, but in our case, in 1990s, there would be 14,000 people who worked in the mines alone, plus the energy sector, plus everything. And by now, the whole thing is only about 6,000 people. So you can see that the transition has really been ongoing for a while. In Estonia, there is only one region that receives JTF support, which is the Idaviru region. I'm currently there. I'm from there as well. So for me, it's, let's say, my home region, something that I feel very dear about, although I work for the national authority. Like in case of Estonia, the JTF is managed nationally, not regionally. We don't have regional authorities since the country is so tiny. We do have different regions, but they lack administrative powers. So we have either the national level or the municipal level. And in Estonia, it was decided that, okay, we'll do this nationally. Since it's only one region, it seemed like we can manage. Obviously, there is a lot of involvement from local stakeholders. So all the different local or let's say regional investment agencies, business support, local municipalities, stakeholder groups, they're all involved through the steering committee that we have, through the different mechanisms that we've set up. So in that sense, there is, thankfully, not much dissonance or not much, let's say, distance between the national level and the local level, which is nice. I know that's not the case in all countries. So I don't know. What else should I tell you about? So I guess welcome to Estonia, welcome to Idaviru, I guess. Let's switch to questions and answers. That must be the most exciting part. I think I'll stop now. Looking forward to questions.
Thank you very much, Ivan, for being so brief. Indeed, yeah, we now have quite a few questions, so I will ask all panelists to be straight to the point in the responses, and we'll also want to have a bit of the contribution also from other attendees to the conversation through a few slide of questions that we have prepared, and we will ask both the attendees on slide and our panelists to respond. So I will go to this first question. Next slide, thanks. So the question is, what are the challenges faced by small and micro businesses in the green transition process in your region or country? Attendees can respond always the same slide of event. I will copy the credential here if I manage. And no, but yeah, you can use the credentials that you can see on the PowerPoint. So I would like to invite our panelists from the three regions to give a bit an overview, so we can have the perspectives. I would actually like to start in it's a bit with Ivan, so we can see what's the Estonian perspective, and as we have already heard a bit from other regional representatives, and like what we would like to understand mostly is if small business shall be considered as marginalized actors in the context of the green transition process in your region of focus.
I guess I'll start. Thanks. One important aspect maybe to mention in case of Ida-Virumaa and SMEs and just generally the context of the region is that we're right there on the border with Russia. So we're the easternmost part of Estonia. 80% of the population actually speaks Russian as their mother tongue. So if we speak Estonian in Estonia, then in Ida-Virumaa, let's say the national minority is in the majority, which means a bunch of different things. It means that information doesn't travel as quickly. It's a little difficult to reach out. You have to apply extra effort to make sure that people are informed about everything that's going on. Obviously, the proximity of Russia has its, let's say, emotional and also economic impacts. For example, when we were preparing the TJTP, then there was a lot of hope that a lot of investments are going to come in, and then Russia decides to invade Ukraine, and then suddenly half of our pipeline invades or evaporates. So that obviously has influenced to quite a dramatic extent how the transition is here being perceived. So that's just the context. But if we speak about SMEs, I don't know, I might be wrong, but I think in case of SMEs, the biggest challenge is that SMEs are not huge enterprises. They don't, for them, let's say, research and development activity is something they don't usually do. For them, going into new markets is not, again, something that they would do as a normal thing unless they're startups. So in case of Ida-Virumaa, at least, most of the SMEs are sort of trying to make ends meet, especially in the context climate, in the current climate, participating in measures and trying to develop themselves and getting support, is just not something that necessarily is something that they want to be wasting their time on. So they're mostly concerned with how am I going to pay rent or how am I going to pay my employees in the next quarter. So in that sense, it's a little difficult to reach out to them and be like, hey guys, there is this green transition going on. It's very exciting. Like there is money as well on the table. Like how about, you develop? So it's some of them are very active and participate, but for the large chunk, I think they just not yet. They don't really recognize themselves in this whole effort just yet. It takes a little while for them to, they've heard about the transition, they've heard about the money being available, they've heard about all sorts of different things, they've even participated in our events, but it doesn't really connect. It's like, okay, there's a transition going on somewhere, and then there's me. And they can't really span this gap. And so with that, they need a lot of help as to, okay, so how does this how does this influence you specifically, what you have to gain, how you can win for this whole situation. So I think maybe that's the biggest challenge. So what we see from our, it was really exciting to hear Anna's numbers, that you guys have more than 50% of your call for enterprises already sort of filled up with ideas. We're not quite there yet. And especially we see that, okay, larger enterprises, they're more active, they participate. But the smaller enterprises, not really. So we have to apply a lot of effort to sort of try and reach out to them. And then kind of going back to your question, maybe, Anita, is, whether they should be perceived as, let's say, underprivileged actors or something like this. I mean, it really depends, because I think we can all be considered unprivileged in some sort of context. But on the other hand, I don't think there is a clear answer to be given here. In some cases, definitely, but definitely not. I don't think we should be looking at SMEs as, disabled actors in the community. Not really. Rather, they're the empowerers. They're the main, let's say, they should be the main locomotives of the transition. So I think it's more about finding the approach and then finding a way for them to recognize themselves in the transition and then supporting them in what they actually need. Yeah, I guess that'd be my 2 cents for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ivan. I would like to hear now from Adam and Eliza, if you have, we have already discussed a bit about that, but if you have want to comment further on the answers that we received and about if small businesses shall be considered as unprivileged actors in the context of green transition process in your respective regions. I would ask, perhaps, start with Adam, perhaps.
Okay, thank you. I like to focus only on one industry of the SMEs. The industry which is connected with renewable energy sources, because of course there are many other industries in SMEs, and part of them probably developed quite well in Poland. There are no much challenges for them, etc. Also in green transition. But especially in that one sector, that in this one industry, which is connected with the green renewable energy sources. So the biggest challenge is the legal regulations, because the regulations which we have now in Poland seriously limits the development of energy clusters and energy cooperatives, and they also limits establishing high volume energy farms or energy storage. And also the existing regulations define inconvenient distance for windmills farms against the settlements, which is quite long, and prevents the expansion of this kind of activities, especially running by the SMEs. And the second challenge for SMEs in our region, as I guess, is the quality of human capital. And also lack of human capital, because in the Silesia, SMEs create about 20 to 30,000 jobs per year, on average, of course. And the challenge is connected with what we call maladjustment on the regional labor market. Imagine that in case we release all miners from coal-intensive industries, so they do not simply find a job in fast-growing SMEs like in IT sectors, programming, automation, or real estate. So there is a serious challenge how to strive to involve them into the knowledge-intensive sectors for us, because there is simply lack of people to work. Yeah, that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Eliza, would you like to add anything to that?
Yes, I completely agree with Adam on regulatory volatility is a huge problem in Romania as well, and not only for SMEs, for the private sector overall. and we're still lagging behind in terms of supporting measures to develop green sectors, to develop, like Adam was saying, energy communities, for example. And this puts just an additional burden on SMEs. It's fascinating to see Estonia's model, because I guess having a population of not even 2 million really lets you pilot things that maybe in other countries would not be possible. So I'm looking quite a lot at their model. And regarding what has been given as examples in the poll, all of them really are applicable in Romania. Confusing political environment and manipulative narrative, definitely, and expecting to get worse. The fact that people don't really demand is not so high, because usually green products and services are more expensive than others, definitely. And here the government should come in with better fiscal incentives, with special public financing programs, better financial intermediation as well. So maybe green micro grants or financial measures that support the development of such businesses. And yes, definitely the workforce. We need to be clear that these alternative economic models can bring about better quality jobs, higher paying jobs, and we need to make sure that people are empowered and have the opportunity to develop the skills needed to participate in this work market.
Thank you, Elasia. And indeed, you have already anticipated a bit the answers to the next question that we have, both on Slido for the panelists. I will speed it up now. So I would like to hear mainly from Anna now. How can local governments and regional governments help small businesses overcome challenges posed by the transition process?
Okay, thank you very much for this question. I think that what we have done at the regional level is to diagnose the challenges faced by the entrepreneurs. We have already carried out a few research within our pilot project, Regional Observatory of Transition Process, which I'm personally responsible for, the project, of course. And we share many of the challenges with Estonia and Romania, because we observe an insufficient readiness and knowledge among enterprises in the transition process, insufficient financial preparation, but also a lack of knowledge, lack of assessment of the skills gap in the entrepreneurships, especially the small and micro one. But it's important to mention that we have 500,000 enterprises in the region. So it's in comparison to Romania, for example, in which, as I can recall, it was in the whole country. So the scale of the investment needed in the entrepreneurship is quite huge. I think that this sector is a little bit lagging behind in the knowledge of the transition process. When we take into consideration, for example, the attendance in our workshops, information meetings, and so on, because they rarely attend to these meetings. But on the other hand, they are very active in the first calls for proposals we've announced, because the two calls that we announced at the beginning was directed to large enterprises. We have a list of 11 large enterprises in TJTP. We announced a first call for proposals for these enterprises. 8 of 11 submitted their applications, and the board, the managing board of the region already accepted these 8 projects to co-financing. And the second calls we had for SMEs, and as I already told you, the number of applications exceeded allocation 5 times. So I think that there are some enterprises especially those who see some positive impact on the business in improving their processes, their products, to be more green, to be more energy efficient, to be more resource efficient, that they are quite keen on investing in their businesses. So we hope that this change will progress. We see that it's a little bit different among coal-related businesses, because they are still in the situation that they are not exactly informed how the situation of the coal sector will be in the future. So I think that some of these businesses do not have enough knowledge and enough administration capacity to invest in or to attend in our calls for proposals. But on the other hand, as a region, except financing the direct investment in the enterprises, we also try to help sub-regions, local economies, to establish new sectors of business. And for example, we have a number of strategic projects which are directed to be new engines of local economies. And for example, one of these projects will be implemented in Katowice, and it's a Katowice gaming hub. And this project was already submitted. One project, for example, in Tychy, it is called Tychy Hub of Green Economy. It was also submitted. So we are assessing this project now. Next one in Gliwice, Technopark. This institution specializes in developing ICT. So we think that in Gliwice coal sub-region, it's worth to invest in this branch of, in this sector of economy. The next one, for example, is in Bytom, and the business accelerator Xenen, called Xenen, will be built there. It is actually one of our best practice because we co-financed one such business accelerator, Xenen, in Żory from the previous perspective. So I think that this region, we are very involved not just in direct investment, but also in improving the local economies. Thank you.
Joanna, thank you very much. Yeah, we see also in the slides, in the Slido, that there were a few responses regarding cooperations, awareness raising of the possibilities, funding for SMEs, investment. I guess there is a lot there. As we are very late, if you don't mind, I will go already to the next question. That's focused a bit on more on trade unions perspectives, and I will ask also to our public to respond as well, which is the question is, what are the challenges affecting workers in the green transition process in your region or country? And especially I would like to hear from Grzegorz and to know if there are specific marginalized or vulnerable category of workers who are more affected than others in the transition process. So I will give the floor to Grzegorz. Let me see if...
Thank you, Anita. Yes, so I think that we have a lot of affected workers in Silesia, also in Poland. My colleague Agata described that maybe we have no so many initiatives, so many action in our country. I little disagree with Agata because there was so many action in Poland, included Silesia, and we try to reduce CO2 emission. And we achieved somewhere a progress. We also lost a lot of coal mines in Silesia. and maybe there was a lot of lack of good action around of this closing mine areas in the past, but we make it in many different places. There was also a lot of jobs that we losing because of transition. So many things happen, bad and good, and this is a time to make transition better for working people. And most of miners are at risk of change. Decarbonization process hit this part of workers because their work becomes redundant. That's how it is defined. So trade union works to provide protection tools for the workers. That's why we negotiate this social agreement in Katowice. And also we negotiate a similar agreement in different sector for energy workers and coal-lignite workers. Even that, I see that the women in workplace are less protected than other workers. Also, I see limitation for the mining-related companies. Means mining company has something like a small, medium, and large company working like business to business, and we probably not well covered in social agreement with companies and employees. So maybe we should focus more often on this sector in future. We should also support youth person. We need to support a new future for next generation. So that's why we should support education and new skilling for young generation. So it's really important to have them on board. So decarbonization directly relates to the situation of workers, where miners are particularly vulnerable and pushed to the margins of labor market because of sometimes political decision, because of economic reason, many things here. So we know also that the miners' work is highly taxed and insured. This is we do a lot to have decent work here, and the question is, and a challenge, what about next? What about the next jobs in, let's say, rest industry? It will be a decent job or maybe not for our next generation. So this is a big challenge to make decent jobs in new industries. We should be more active, more proactive policy we need here. So yeah, it's really important. And I think that in our local society, we also we will hit by decarbonization, because some of former social actors, well-organized interest group of civil society organization, like in example trade unions, are losing their influence. This is also a big challenge for us, because maybe we organize the people locally, we also try to represent the interest, and there will be a big missing point in our local society without us, let's say. So, so we also must consider some of action supporting local capacity building of small association, new trade unions, and also all of civil society organization acting in coal mining regions. Yeah, so we must propose the integration of adequate social protection measure into national climate policy. Included measure specifying, targeting those who are going to be negatively affected. And here we have the miners. Personally, I feel that if we achieve a big progress because of our social agreement, there will be maybe much smaller problem, let's say, in Silesia. But if we fail somewhere, we need also more social protection for the miners in future. So that's my, let's say, perception. We also had a big challenge in our region because of energy, you know, and in my perception, unions should play more important role in supporting the just transition, and we need focus on creation of sustainable low energy systems. Now, Silesia is highly dependent on coal. So if there will be no energy coming from coal, there will be also no future for next generation. So that's why we need to stimulate new economic activities in Silesia. We must develop affordable energy services, maybe coming from SMEs. We need to deliver something like an option for energy security. It's so important for us, let's say, because of Ukrainian crisis. And we need to reduce the risk of new energy technologies. And also transition have to be more just and more inclusive for whole of societies. And I think the universities should train undergraduate and postgraduate students for green and decent jobs. So without education, there will be a big problem. So yeah, I think that we are reducing a lot of CO2 emission, but even that, there is something like a big moving to the goal 55%. So we have here a quick and deep structural change also for our industry. And this industry is so important for Silesia. So it is a big challenge because approximately we try to tripling of annual emission reduction compared of what Poland, but also EU achieved between 1919 and 2018. So it's like unprecedented intensification of emission reduction for the industries. And this industries is so really important for us. And the question is how to achieve this, let's say, fostering of action. It's not an easy answer for such a region like Silesia, and we must to talk about it, and we must stimulate new investment in Silesia. This is really important, but also a big challenge. And everywhere we need workers and trade unions participation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Grzegorz. Indeed, you anticipated a bit the answers to the solutions to challenges. And yeah, I'll now move on to the next slide for our public, that while they are responding, I would like to already ask the next question I have for the panel, and specifically for Agata and Ivan, which is, are there any good practices of stakeholder engagement in green transition process in your region or country? So for instance, like civil society, unions, but also companies, if there is this kind of participatory processes. And yeah, if you want to share anything, I would like to give the floor first to Agata to respond that, and then perhaps we can go back to the slide or question a bit later.
Okay, thanks a lot for the question. And before I answer it, I will have the short introduction, but I promise it will be really short, but it's again highlighting what the context is. So, and I would like actually to refer to what you said, Grzegorz, that many things have been done. And I agree with you, many things have been done, but it's a matter of perspective, who sees what has been done. And I'm from the perspective of people who don't see maybe that much. And that's what I would like to say. Our feeling in the Silesian climate movement in the social sector is that people are really not informed about transition processes generally. And why is that? Because the general narrative of the government was the coal is great, coal gives us safety. We can do something more with the coal, and we will discuss with the EU about that, because of course, the processes in the EU are getting at full speed. So then there's the regional level when the process is being implemented and the things are being done, but it's still the political process, and not all the people have got access to that. And then there are some opportunities like funding, but what is the feeling of the people we talk to is that it's for big business, or it's for businesses which are smart, or they've got access to experts, or maybe some more information, and like normal people or normal small businesses which are surrounding the coal business, they don't have really access and they don't know what to do with that. And actually, even totally, I take the picture you made that there is some just transition process, and then it's me in that. And how can I fit in that? And how can I raise my awareness? So that's the challenge. And if we are coming to good practices in this context, good practice are made by non-governmental sector, non-governmental organizations, who are trying to give some information on how to get into the transition process. And the case will be the energy cooperatives. Like the non-governmental organization are getting to people who would like to begin with the energy cooperative, but they don't know how. So the non-governmental organization get there and they provide them with information, and then the awareness raises, and there's this enlightenment like, oh my, it's really hard, it's difficult. Energy is not selling carrots from my own garden. So how we can do that, how we can organize that? Well, we need to have a really strong operator or supporter, maybe a town, maybe a big institution, whatever, someone who decides to support us and to be backup if something happens, because otherwise it's very hard to get risk, to take the risk. So there are some, I would say, good cases and struggling energy cooperatives, which are really working, but there are still not enough, because there's not enough support. So another example is what we do as Silesian Climate Movement. We raise awareness about the climate issues and decarbonization, so that the things just happen to be in the local media, for example, and people can hear about that. Because when we talk to people in the field, to the miners, to people working in surrounding businesses, they always tend to say, well, yes, we know there's something happening about the coal, but we hope that the things will come down soon. So they think it's the process which is happening now, but maybe we can get back to what's been before. So, and of course, these are not the people who are informed, who get the opportunity of the funding, who know about what's happening. So somehow we are talking to the people who know that something is happening, but they are not really in that. So first thing, energy cooperatives, good example. Second, providing information to the people who don't know, and they can get into the process somehow, they can find out. So that's the case of Silesian Climate Movement. And the third thing, which is, I think it's the crossing of our ways, the public institutions and the social part, is the call for applications which were held this year, and actually projects focused on just transition, focused on getting to the people, are being designed right now. Am I right? So they're being designed. The process is on the formal level, like signing the agreements, deciding, creating cooperation groups. So what I expect that lots of things are going to happen this year and next year. So I think it's also a good example that public institutions invites the social sector to cooperate on just transition and asks the social sector how to do that. But it's just the beginning of the process, so we will see what happens. And I'm not sure whether Anna and Adam, whether you agree with me, but I would say that's the third case of a good example. That's beginning, and I've got a really great hope for it. So I hope that's enough. If not, I'm happy to answer the questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Agata. Yeah, there is a lot here to discuss also in terms of awareness raising, but I would like to hear if you can provide a brief input also from Ivan, because he has like good experience of participatory processes in the planning of just transition in Estonia. And perhaps, yeah, he wants to share any experience on stakeholder engagement from there. So, Ivan, if you're still there.
Yeah, thanks, Anita. Yeah, there's so little time, so much to say. I think really communications and engagement is super important. And one of the reasons why it's super important, it's not just important for implementing the JTF, which is essentially money, right, or like funds, but it's important because JTF is actually a small part in the big picture of climate change, climate advocacy. It's a massive thing that we're talking about. We're talking about people losing their jobs because for a lot of them, it's a very let's say, some distant future, some distant idea of some climate change. And, now I'm in Narva in October and it's like -degree outside. And they ask me, what climate, what warming, what are you talking about? So it's we're trying to address an issue which is much larger by this little thing, which is called the JTF. So in that sense, just, more power to us. We should just be aware of the fact that it's not easy. We are sort of fighting an uphill battle here with this one specific instrument. But speaking of specific good practices is, I would say 3 in our case. The steering committee that we have includes the local actors, the national actors, the representatives of of the green movement, representatives of large industry, ministries, and so on and so forth. So it's a really great, for us, it has been a really great forum, like mini forum, to discuss, so how are we going to be steering this thing? And also through the members of the steering committee to reach out to the respective communities. So if we want to talk to let's say, to the chemical sector or to the oil shale sector, then we have a representative of them on the steering committee. And they don't always agree with what everybody else is thinking. So in that sense, there are 2 maybe takeaways from that, is that it's good to have a steering committee or like this forum for stakeholders. And it is paramount to have also the, let's say, both the pro-sayers and the naysayers in the committee. And those things need to be sort of kind of, all in, how do I say, integrated. On the other hand, having people in the steering committee doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be involved. They can just sit there and listening and do nothing. So in that sense, it needs to be a proactive engagement. In any case, thankfully, in our case, it has been working pretty well. Second, we have a special intervention, or like a special mechanism for involving the civic society. Calls are going to be open in a couple of weeks. So we're hoping that that's going to generate like a larger public engagement, larger public awareness of what we're doing. And then the third thing that you might have heard about is that we organized the climate assembly a couple of years ago, which was we essentially to involve the youth. At some point, we realized that the youth don't have coordinated representation. So the trade unions do, industries do, ministries also do, but the youth, they really sort of lack this coordinated approach to representing themselves in policy making. So we were like, all right, we need to have some representatives from the youth in Ida-Virumaa specifically, not just some general, country organization, but specifically the youth of Ida-Virumaa. And we carried out this so-called climate assembly where the process was a little difficult. You can reach out to me later if you want to learn more. But what we got in the end was suggestions for inclusion in the TJTP. We have youth in our steering committee now represented, and they grew out, so to say, from this climate assembly thing. And we also have a totally new NGO who deals with informing people about the JTF among the youth here in Ida-Viru region. So I guess those 3: the steering committee, separate involvement or separate actions, geared specifically at the civic society, and then the third one was like just as a very specific example of practice that we've had is this climate assembly thing. So that's from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ivan, for this overview of what's going on on the Estonian side. Well, we are running out of time, so I will have just one last question that goes to Agata Otrebska. That's not the one that you see on the slide, but the question is if you want to share any examples of solutions that the local civil society has brought to the table in Silesia in order to face the challenges generated by the economic transformation. I mean, you have already anticipated that, but perhaps you want to share any good examples that you have. And in the meantime, perhaps I would require to a public if they want to respond to question slide on number 8, so we can have at least, if they are still there, some insights.
Thank you. I might appear a bit boring and repetitive, but I think everything is a matter of information. So, and Elisa, you brought it up before, that the main thing to support the just transition, and not just transition, is to provide information to those who cannot get this information easily. And I think that it's very easy to, as a public institution, to get into the trap that we connected all the types of groups so people know. And the task will be to get to the people in the field, to go, go to the cities and old places and talk to the people where they live and what they experience. So your anthropological perspective, I think, is very useful here, Elisa, because before this conference, I talked to my friend and I said that we are taking part as a Silesian climate movement in this type of event and that we are representing people. And she said, well, with all the respect, you're not the people. So basically, being in the Silesian climate movement makes me already more informed than other people. So I think that like providing information somewhere on the website or in formal processes is not enough to get to people so that they connect with the process and they can fit in. And I think more field work, more field research, more meeting people in real space, talking to them, that's the most important thing, to find more information about their experience, what they experience, what they see, what they know. And I think that the differences that we could see here, that some processes are going on, and I'm saying, well, we don't know about that. That's still the issue. So just to highlight it and wrap it up, expand the information process so that, the just transition process is well known and people are aware, just like in the parliamentary process. They know that the elections are happening in the country. All the people know. So that should be the same kind of information process. But on the other hand, going to the people, talking to them and getting their experience. And gathering this information can make the process more smooth and more just. That's my perspective, and I would love to ask all the others what you think about that, because I might be really narrow-sighted and see just one most important thing for us. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Agata. I think we have now to conclude this dialogue. It's a pity that it was a bit short, our interactive part. But yeah, I see that there are many insights, and we see that the complexity of the level of interest and of the different issues affecting the various economic actors in the regions that are undergoing the transition process. The key seems to be participation, cooperation, raising awareness, and dialogue, indeed, between the actors and at the local level. So yeah, well, I thank you very much for participating in this panel, and I hope that we'll have the chance to continue the discussion in another dialogue or in another informal occasion. And yeah, thank you to all the participants for joining us. And the recording will be soon available on the ICAS and Bolster website. And we hope to see you in spring at our next dialogue. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for participating. And yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Anita, for discussion.
Thank you.
Invitation. So goodbye. See you next time.
Very much.
Thank you.